Hi there, it's Kirk. Welcome to the A.D.K Rock and Metal channel. And this evening, I've got a special guest. I'm joined by Jona Nido, who is the founder of Hummus Records. He's also the guitar player in the Swiss noise rock band Coilguns, and recently was commissioned to write a piece for the prestigious Roadburn Music Festival and has formed a band called Trounce, who have produced one of the albums of the year. So welcome to the channel, Jona. We've got a few questions for you. But first of all, how are you?
Well, thank you for having me. First of all, I'm doing quite good despite the cold days, you know. I've been sick enough this year, I guess. And yeah, thank you for having me and for all these great titles. Sounded good.
Yeah, you seem surprised by them.
I mean, it's always, you know, it's listening to someone making a summary of what you've done, which is not a lot, but it's something. It's always, you know, it's always surprising. So, yes.
Probably quite strange. So let's get into it then. First question. I want to start with the events leading up to Trounce performing your live set at the Roadburn Festival in Tilburg, the Netherlands, on the 21st of April this year. Why did the Roadburn organisers approach you and ask you to write a commissioned piece as a new project rather than Coilguns?
Yeah, that's quite a story because you know we did play with Coggins already a couple of years ago, and you know I knew the festival. I visited the festival a couple of times as well, and I kind of knew the woman and the guy running the festival, but not like crazy personally. But everybody knows, that is a geek enough into like extreme or experimental music will know that they're major music fans, right?
Yeah.
And so I had this band on the label on Hummus Records called Ir. I don't know how to pronounce this in English.
How do you spell it?
YRRE.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know the name. Yes.
And you know, somehow this band like they made like an alternative soundtrack to the Witch movie, and that's how they were playing it live, basically in Switzerland. And I knew that sound would like, you know, it would probably please the Roadburners. So I wrote to Walter and Becky, and I was like, well, I have this band. Almost never like they've never played abroad. They've played a couple of shows, and they're doing this, and maybe you enjoy it. I don't know. And then, you know, 3 weeks later, I got an email from Walter and Becky saying like, "Wow, we've listened to this record for 3 weeks straight. It's amazing. Can we hop on a Zoom call?" And I'm like, "Yes, sure." And then we do so, and then they're all up for booking this band. And eventually, Walter was like, "But tell me a bit about you, because you know I know you're playing in Coggins, obviously, and I know you have this record label. So tell me a bit more." And then we talked for an hour and a half, and it was, I don't know, it was crazy to talk to someone that's been doing so much for the scene, and still seeing him like astonished about whatever I had to say, answering his questions, basically, you know, like so interested he was. And wow, it was great. And then he was like, well, maybe, you know, maybe we should do something more. And he was like, I'll be in touch. And then 2 weeks later, he just approached me and he's like, well, you know how the festival, you know, revolves around these commission pieces and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, yeah. And he's like, well, I've talked to a couple of journalists, like foreign journalists, and you know, it seems like you guys are the one cool label in Switzerland doing what you do and like federating all these bands and stuff. And so what do you think about, you know, like being like directing a commission, like basically, yeah, leading a commission piece, but the only thing that he asked was that the band would be made out of people from different bands on the label.
Right.
And I was like, well, yes. I mean, I didn't have the time to do it, but I was like, I'm gonna do it, you know. It was crazy. I mean, I've seen really artists, like international artists that really inspired me, like to do what I do. Having this, you know, thinking of like, I don't know, last year, 2 years ago, it was like Johannes from Cult of Luna with
Yeah.
Perturbator, for example. And then I'm like, I know it's not just me, you know, it's the label, but it was still quite something, you know, like, yeah, I didn't know how to react, to be honest. Yeah.
You know what? Roadburn, I first really first came into my consciousness when Triptychon released that live album
All right,
at
yeah.
Roadburn. By the way, because you're from Switzerland, I am wearing my Celtic Frost t-shirt as well. I just thought I would do that. The originators of avant-garde metal. So yeah, that Roadburn came into my consciousness, and yeah, so to be commissioned for that, I completely understand why you're saying this is a tremendous honor to be given this project. And of course, you didn't have time. You're running a record label and you're in a full-time band, but you just thought, I can't say no. So
No,
that makes sense. But how difficult was it to put together a live band then? So Walter has had this conversation, come back to you within 2 weeks. And this is serious, isn't it? It's not just we should do this in the future. It's let's do this.
yeah, pretty much. Like I only had like a week or so to think about if I wanted to do it or not. And now we're talking maybe November, and the festival is in April. And you know, like as a running a record label and playing in touring bands, your schedule is pretty full month ahead. So yeah, I kind of made up my mind that I had to dedicate myself to this. And that's why also I kind of like for like almost 4 months, I basically like stopped everything, including social life, and working 7 days out of 7. And the cool thing that's, you know, that's not very clear in the let's say in the press text or anything is that I actually had demos from the studio tracks already, because it would have been very hard to come up with like such a, I don't want to say strong because it's going to sound pretentious, but still like in these few months coming out with songs that are very like built as songs with like vocals and like proper songs, so to speak, not like an experimental drone project, you know, that would be more of a experimental sound design thing. Having songs would have been very hard if I didn't have anything before. So the thing is that I kind of wanted to get this out at one point. So I had these demos, and I was in the process of recording drums eventually, right at the time when they offered this opportunity of doing the commission piece. And yeah, so basically I took some of the studio's tracks and, you know, choose the ones that I wanted to play or reinterpret, let's say, with the live band. And I thought that this would be like a good basis to work on, you know, to give a direction to people, because, you know, it's hard to meet with people and just create out of nothing. That's not really, that's not an easy thing, especially when you have to build like or write a 60-minute set.
Yeah.
So I needed to choose wisely the people I wanted to work with, also knowing that they would be able to take the pressure for that, and that they would be able to put the work into it, you know, because it's been like 3 months of rehearsal almost every day. And knowing in advance, that was my role as an artistic director, to know who's going to do what. So it wasn't like just an open bar for anyone to do whatever they wanted, because we needed to have some directions to be able to deliver this. So I chose a couple of songs from the record, maybe 5 or 6, I can't remember now. And then that was a basis. We worked around it, and then I could see like where this was going for each person in the band that I chose. And then we started like writing stuff all together somehow, you know, to build this kind of like, story through the whole set. I mean, I'm using this word not to sound pretentious or conceptual. It's what people have been saying after seeing the shows, which was kind of what I wanted to achieve, like having this whole thing very dynamic from minute 1 to minute 60, going through very different phases, you know. You probably have realized that the record is really going, it's very intense, but it's still going like in picking in every genre of extreme music, you know.
Yes.
And with the live setting, I thought there was like a chance to do that, but with more contrast and dynamic, like going lower and going heavier, but also going more droning to some extent, and more eerie with like weird vocals or clean vocals, you know. So in the end, it wasn't so hard to put up that band, because, you know, when you call your friends that have been playing music with you for a long time, or friends that haven't been playing music for a long time, for that matter, actually, to some. You call them and you're like,
singer.
Sorry?
Reynard, your singer, obviously, has not been active for a few years, has he?
Yeah, he hadn't been on stage for 10 years. And you know, he was like, he's 50 years old, he's not been on stage for 10 years. And on the other hand, we have Leah, who's playing keyboard and singing, who had almost never played keyboard nor singing, nor really played in a heavy band. And she had played 5 shows by the time we played in front of 2,000 people at Roadburn. So she fainted before the show, actually.
Is that true? Oh, okay.
Yeah, she had I don't know how do you call this, tachycardia. It's like, you know, something with your heart. So
yeah.
Luke, the drummer, gave her a hug, like 1 minute before we started the intro, and she just fainted, and we had to postpone the show for 15 minutes, like just hoping that she was gonna get back, you know, somehow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this when you call these people and you're like, you know, they're people I trust and they know what I do and I know what they do, and I call them and I'm like, "Wow, do you want to do this?" Everybody was like, "I don't know if I can, but I want to do it. So let's get to work." And I was very touched by that, actually, and it was kind of flawless, to be honest. I mean, of course, there's been some tension in the beginning because I was under pressure a lot, and when, you know, in the first month you don't see that much progress sometimes, and I was just being under pressure a lot, and I was like, fuck, you know, that's going to be a display of what we do, you know, from the underground scene, from part of the Swiss underground scene. So we should be tight and we should know what we do and we should be confident in what we do. And I was really like freaking out sometimes.
I think it's because you've set yourself, the standard is so high. For our viewers, I think I need to explain. The Seven Crowns, this album, like you said, is an hour. It's highly technical. There's no like flamboyance. You're not showing off. It's really extreme. There's a lot of noise in there, but the level of musicianship, certainly the guitars and the drums, are just supreme. And you could have just, obviously the commission says it must be a 60-minute set. So I understand why that's going to put you under pressure. But even to do a 4-track EP of songs like this, which are on average 5 minutes, would have been a lot of work. So this is like someone has said to you, can you write a novel in 6 months' time, a novella? And you've said, I'll give you a 600-page novel, but I'm just going to have to stop doing everything for 4 months. So I can see why you were probably having dreams about this, imagining yourself on stage after 1 month again. We don't have any songs.
Man, that was quite, well, the thing is that I didn't stop doing anything else. I didn't stop doing all the other things. That's why it was crazy.
Yeah.
I was doing this almost full time. I mean, if you take like a work week for anyone, that was almost full time on Trounce. But I was still doing like, you know, management for different bands and running the record label. And also by the time, I was also recording the guitars for the studio album at the same time.
Yes, right.
And we were doing the vocals, and like I did record the synth for the studio album. It was crazy, but it was also a good you know, I stopped having a social life for like 5 months basically, and you know, nothing much changed in those 5 months. I did stop smoking, I did stop drinking, you know, I didn't go to any shows or didn't see any friends so much, let's say. And then 5 months later, the world was still in the same place. So I just picked up, but by then I had written a studio album that was recorded, and we had this commission piece ready. And then you know, I already booked like a Swiss tour and planned the release of the record. And now this is part of, you know, we're kind of like making a little money out of this, you know. So it's a small job for a team of 8 people, which is quite cool, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you will look back on those 5 months in a few years' time and just think they were magical, because like you said, it's like the world just didn't change. You didn't know if the world had changed or not. And then 5 months later, you wake up, you're like, oh, everything's the same.
Hey, exactly. And this investment of time had has given me the opportunity to lay down basis for my, I would call it solo project. Obviously, I work with people, but this is the only band where it's like it's my only artistic vision, and so it was so. Again, I don't want to sound pretentious, but like writing those Trounce songs, the demos were so easy that, you know, I plan on writing more, of course. I'm talking about the studio tracks, right? It was really an easy task, because by the time I started writing songs, I had absorbed all these codes from Extreme Music from 20 years ago. And finally, I had some kind of the guitar level to do this, you know, to do kind of what I wanted. And I never had a drummer that was able to blast beats super fast. So, you know, I just bought like a plugin. And then I realized that basically anything on blast beats works somehow. So it was really easy. Like the songs, like the way you hear it on the record, it's the order in which I wrote the tracks. So the first track is the very first track I wrote. Up to the last one, I wrote them in this order, and we decided to keep this track list exactly in the way I wrote them. And besides that, you know, besides the vocals and the drums, which obviously that's a real drummer on the studio record, nothing has changed. The guitar riffs are exactly the same from the very first moment I wrote them. So I wrote one song, put it on the side, wrote the second one, etc. And so the shape, length, and riffs have not changed since day one. So I'm so happy with the outcome, because it was very spontaneous, actually, you know. And I hear that I think it's quite catchy to some extent. I don't know. I think it's a great record, and I'm really looking forward to write more, actually. And Roadburn was a great chance to, you know, rather than releasing music out of nothing, at least I have this kind of like crowd now already.
You had a deadline as well, didn't you? You had a deadline. Your reputation was at stake, wasn't it? As a musician, also as somebody within the industry who's the CEO of a record company, and also these contacts. These are your friends. You can't let them down. And that surely must have spurred you on as well. Because I was going to ask, I think you've actually answered this. What plans did you have at the initial stage to do a studio recording? Well, you said early on you'd started going into the studio anyway, hadn't you?
Yes.
Did you know, was that to help you with the songwriting and to play that back to the other members of the collective? Or was it, we are going to release this as a studio album at some point as well?
Well, the thing is that the studio albums was never meant to be played live. And you mentioned the musicianship, especially on guitar and drums. So we're going to give the thumbs up to the drummer, because he was able to take my program drums and make something out of it. And he's a crazy drummer. But I'm not going to lie, like the guitar, I've been, I edited a lot of it. Like I'm an okay guitar player, but some stuff on the record, I would need a lot of work to play. So, and even when we produced the record, I told Kevin, who produced the record with me, I was like, I don't want this to sound human in any way, you know, not to a Beneath the Massacre level, but like, I was like, I don't care if we edit guitars, I want this to sound big and like cold and like a machine, you know?
Yeah.
And so the thing is that I really didn't want to do anything live. I just wanted to have an artistic, how do you say it? Like playground, you know?
Yeah.
Where I don't have to think about touring, about rehearsing, and about all of this. And when I played the tracks a couple of years ago to the second guitar player from Trounce, the demos, right?
NASA, yeah.
And I told him, I was like, well, so would you like to play guitar on this record? And, you know, this is never going to be a live band. And I remember sitting in his living room in 2020 and telling him, except if we can, you know, if this band become a cult for some reason, we're just joking, you know, it was late at night, we're probably high or something. And then I was like, except if that band becomes a cult at one point and we get invited by Roadburn. And you know, it's a true story.
You had a premonition.
Hey, I'm not lying. It's a very true story. And, you know, so when I got the invitation, I called him and I was like, well, it sounds like, you know, we don't even need to become a cult before playing to Rodburn. And we wanted to have a band together for years, like 20 years maybe, but we never had a band together. And so I think it's so cool that the first time we got on stage together was at Rodburn with this band that I showed him like 3 years ago. But because of those tracks were never meant to be played live, I also wrote songs that I couldn't, at least me, I couldn't play live. Yeah. So that's also why this whole thing came up. I was like, we need to be, smart about the strategy, because it would have been stupid not to release this studio record, but the live record is very different. So we had discussions, what to do best, what is a good strategy. And in the end, I was like, fuck, no strategy. Let's make the most undigestible, how do you say in English, undigest?
Yeah, like, no, that probably would be a good word to describe it.
Like a record that has 11 studio tracks where blast beats never stops, and then 11 live tracks where it goes in everywhere. And I was like, this is my business card for what I can do with my friends when we're under pressure,
Yeah.
And I think I'm super happy. Like I think the outcome, like on a personal level as well, like the human journey that it's been, it was short, but it was so intense,
Yeah.
And I'm super happy, and I'm already looking forward to write more, and without knowing where this is going to go, to be honest.
Yeah, let's go on to that then. So I was thinking, is this going to be a band like that Max Cavalera project, Nail Bomb? And then they did that album, he and the singer and guitar player from Fudge Tunnel, that English noise rock band. Then they did this live album called Proud to Commit Commercial Suicide, and then that was it. Is that what will happen to Trounce? Because you said you're working on a solo album next.
No, what I meant about the solo album is that Trounce is my solo project.
I see. Yes, that makes sense.
So the live setting, because I know that the Rodburn pitch kind of like turned things the other way, but the studio tracks, the demos of the studio tracks were there before Rodburn.
Yeah,
actually. So, and I was alone back then. And then, I got a lineup to record the album, but then it's a different lineup for the live setting. Yeah. And that because there was Rodburn, I didn't feel like it was cool to spend all this work and do that one single show. So that's why I was like, well, let's play, a few shows in Switzerland. Maybe if we get some offers here and there, maybe we do it. But I don't want this to become a touring band. And also it's 8 people, because it's 6 people on stage. It's a light designer, a sound guy as well, that we want to work with these people exclusively. So it's 8 people that you need to move around. Going abroad can be expensive when you have a touring party of 8 people. So I was like, and the schedule of each of us is very complicated as well, because our sound guy is also the bass player for Colgan's, but he's also the sound guy of Colgan's singer when he plays solo. But then our keyboard player, she's also like doing lights for many bands on the label, and like it's just a nightmare of crossovers. So to answer your question shortly, I never answer shortly, I'm sorry.
A good thing. As an interviewer, I want people to speak as much as they want. That's my dream.
That's true. So I have no idea. I'm going to write music without caring. I'm going to write more music for Trounce without caring whether it's going to be played live or not. And if the time feels right to go back on stage at one point, then we're going to do it. I think the team is so good. And it's when I've seen what we can do, like I even thought of just writing a second, studio album, and again, do a weird live version of it. But that might be too much work, because, as you mentioned earlier, also like my main band is Colgan's, which is also a band I funded. And this is the work of our life, basically. Like everything is related to Colgan's. We started the label because of Colgan's. Colgan's is the reason we do everything, and our whole life schedule is based on Colgan's. And we're going to put out our next record next year, and we're intending to be very busy with the band for the next few years. So
yeah, I want to go off just on a brief tangent about hummus records. I was going to say what inspired you to form a record label. So I know you wanted to release your own music with Coil Guns. For our viewers, Coil Guns. In fact, we'll address this now. I've sent you this question in advance. How would you describe Coil Guns? And then I will describe what I think your music is, certainly based on the last two albums.
Look, I mean, for me, it's a weird. I would say it's a weird, piece of punk noise band somehow, with the hint, with like, I would give it a hint of pop, but only in the shape of the tracks. That's how we, we would like to. That's how we would like people to receive it. Like that they could understand the pop format of the song, but being completely flabbergasted by the the avalanche of violence, basically not violence, but like of energy coming out of it. I don't want to use violence because like it's the outcome we want is very positive. So, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, good description. Yeah, I think I need to summarize this for our viewers as well. Rock music, since grunge, doesn't really do anything for me. But recently, having heard, like you've got bands like Ken Mode, you've got that American band Chat Pile, and then there's your band. And to use those three examples, it's like you've taken rock music and just injected it with extreme metal. It's so edgy. You're right. I know that the outcome, you don't want it to be synonymous with violence. So that 2019 album you did, Watchwinders, it shocked me when I heard it. And I'll tell you why. It was like you were writing garage rock through the spectrum of extreme metal. I don't think anyone's even thought to do that. And you were saying about this album for Trounce, you want to keep that energy. And I recognize in the drums on that, it was just you wanted it to sound as live as possible, didn't you, that last album? So it shocked me because I couldn't understand how this could be so heavy, for like a punk rock type band. The album before it, Millennials, is so different. I actually thought that was a dark, introspective record that had moments of sludge metal in there. But you're right, in both, there's pop formats. It's like you deliberately subverting pop music, like what Nirvana did and Soundgarden. Do you see any similarities with like that era of alternative rock in the early 1990s? Because you don't sound like that, but I think you're taking that vicious like sense of humor almost and really injected it into pop music.
I mean, we were all born in the mid 80s, so basically mid 90s, that's when we started discovering like guitar music. So that kind of makes sense. And your description, thank you, because that's exactly, I wish that's how everybody would receive it, because I think we're a rock band. Definitely.
Yeah, I agree.
Like
just so fucking heavy.
quiet, edgy and heavy, yeah, but that's where we're going. And like even the fact that you think that on Millennials there's already this like kind of like pop format, it's true because like Louis, our singer who's been producing the last two records, like Millennials and Watchwinders, he writes, he's got a solo project where he writes songs and he produces records for other artists, and he's a big fan of melodies in songs and all that. And it's always been a will to try to make this music as heavy as possible, but staying as much as a rock band as possible, and make it still like understandable for most people, somehow. It's been a challenge and a build-up that we're, that is gonna hopefully gets to its peak with the next record. But yeah, that's interesting. I can't say whether like, we feel very close to bands like Nirvana, of course, but also like bands that have come to mind, especially when we're doing Watchwinders, was the Beastie Boys, for example,
the early stuff.
And Nirvana has always been a band definitely that was there, but I can't really draw a straight line between us and Nirvana, of course, but somehow we realized quite quickly with Coil Guns that we were not you know, we've never been really welcomed in the metal scene, so to speak. But we were not really welcome in the rock scene at the
It's too
early.
heavy for the rock scene, I think, and the metal scene. People are confused because they're like, "Oh, is this post-hardcore?" They won't really. It's hard to understand it. I think it's what I love about it. You're operating. I agree. You're a rock band, but this is like the heaviest rock music you will ever hear. You know, it's really extreme, but it's got pop structures. It's just. I think Chat Pile, Ken Mode, and what Coilgun's doing. I think you're really making it possible for. I'm a metalhead, but I do like dark music as well. You know, the Cure,
Yeah.
Depeche Mode, things like that. I just when I hear Chat Pile and Coilguns and Ken Mode, it gives me hope. It's like, yeah, because I got into guitar music through the rock greats, and I don't think people realize what you're doing. It's not really. It's hard to process that something so heavy can actually be rock music. And that keep doing it. That's all I'm going to say. Keep doing it. You've really surprised me that it's still possible as a metalhead to hear something that's heavier than most metal bands, and you're not even a metal band. And I think that's the ultimate success. Sorry, triumph of what you're doing.
That's very cool. I mean, that's very cool to hear, because it's very cool to hear. Sorry, I'm a bit like overwhelmed with this because it's exactly what we're trying to do, and I know it takes some time. It's challenging to kind of want to play this kind of music with this kind of heaviness and darkness to some extent, as well. And now after 10 years, also having the will to kind of like bring this to like a more rocky or even mainstream crowd. I think it would be interesting also to try and be the bridge for people to get into heavy music through that kind of music, which is, I want to believe we're a band with integrity, and we're a heavy band indeed, but we're also very open-minded, and we're happy to be very inclusive in the way we interact with our crowd or with the new crowd. And I really hope that we can become one of these bands and being able to bridge with the more mainstream crowd. And listening to a feedback like yours, like hearing a feedback like yours gives me hope that we might be able to do this, and have, maybe have kids at some shows, and that they're going to be like, oh, I want to pick up a guitar because I like how this guy is doing his thing, and because the kid is going to be there because it's, because he's going to be with his parents that are going to feel welcome to a show like this. Because sometimes with music that is too heavy or too dark is too niche. And we're one of these niche bands, but I think there's a way to, I'm hoping that we can be that band that is going to bridge these two worlds somehow, which I think bands like, The Armed are doing like greatly at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's taken like ages. Their first records, like no one really understood what they were doing. It was really a scene thing. And now they're just blowing up,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's, to every, I know it's not to everybody's taste, but like I really appreciate the way they've been doing things and like the image they have, because at the same time they're super extreme, but it's also a very fucking great rock band. So yeah.
That's it. And I've got two more questions then for this interview. So, sorry, three. Is the Seven Crowns by Trounce like your extreme metal fantasy? Is this like you've just been able to write the heaviest album you can think of? Because it says in the press release, I think this is quite amusing. You had to go and find some old Dark Funeral riffs that you had like on a hard drive somewhere.
Well,
inspiration.
Yeah. It's exactly that. It's like, it's the band I would have loved to have when I was 17, but I didn't have the level or enough friends playing this kind of music,
Yeah.
And basically, but I listened to like a lot of extreme metal from the early 2000s. Well, I started with like regular metal, let's say early 2000, but then I went into, once you discover Dillinger Escape Plan, then Converge, then Cradle of Filth. For some reason, it's that age where you're like, give it to me, everything. Yeah. And then eventually with black metal, there was one point I didn't understand this kind of music. And I listened to black metal for like 3 months straight, like 8 hours a day when I was working. And from, the most occult things to the more funny ones, like Dark Funeral.
Yeah, theatrical.
I really have a sweet spot for them somehow, especially for that record, which is called, uh, fuck, I always forget.
Is it
It's
the one that comes as a passport, the CD? I remember buying one, I think it was 2000, and their album was like a passport and it had a satanic image on it. I can't remember what it's called.
Oh wait, because I think the album I have in mind, it's Diabolus Interium, which is from 2001, I
Oh, maybe
think.
that is the one. I wonder if there was a special edition.
Maybe.
So I remember buying one, it was a passport, but it had the Kingdom of Satan or something like that on it as the title.
Ah, no way. That would be so funny if that's that. That would be even more fun. I think that's the one, man. It
Yeah.
is. Oh shit, that's awesome. Well, so that record, which has these songs, like there's this first or second song called Heil Murder and this kind of things, and I could never take this too seriously, except for the musicianship, of
Yeah,
course.
exactly. Yeah.
And there was this, it's super catchy. The guitar melodies are super catchy, kind of cheesy, but super catchy.
Yeah.
And so it was really like, it was really the main inspiration. Like I was like, I've never had a band like this, and I like the harmonies, and I know that all these things I'm not allowed to do in Coggins, and
Yes.
and also some early Dimmu Borgir as well.
Yeah.
I mean early, I don't know, but like especially like specifically puritanical, euphoric, fuck,
I can't remember.
puritanical, euphoric
Have I got it on my
misanthropia.
show? I've got two of their albums. I remember that that's their big album, isn't it? The one that
Yeah, that's the one with the
everyone.
woman's chest with
Yeah,
like
yeah,
barbed wires
exactly.
and stuff.
Yeah.
So actually, there's a song on the Seven Crowns called "The Goose and the Swan," and the guitar solo is and the harmonies behind it is completely ripped off a song from this record. So it is true. It is true that I went back to this, and then of course I cooked it my own way, with like also some weird Colgan's tunings because I have some weird guitars, custom guitars, and I use weird tunings, and it's basically my tribute to kind of this early 2000 fancy, funny black metal, so to speak.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like put myself into a position where I'm like, oh, this is black metal, and I'm into the whole concept of black metal. It was really like, oh, I want to do this, and these are going to be my inspirations. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a black metal record. That's got a big influence on it. I mean, but there's a lot of post-punk and gothic rock and pop in there as well. It's just I would just say extreme metal. When the press release came through, they were describing Trounce as alternative metal. So I always associate that with Faith No More. I love Faith No More, but a lot of the bands they've influenced are obviously nowhere near as good. So it's like alternative metal. Is this just going to be another new metal album? And then when I heard track number one, The Seven Sleepers, I was thinking, I had to like press pause and then check me. I was like, is this the band that called themselves alternative metal? Because it was like the complete opposite to what I was expecting. I thought I'd downloaded the wrong album. I was like, no, I haven't. This is the album.
Yeah, we didn't know, like, is it progressive metal? Is it alternative metal? In the end, that's why I think we came up with this epic, reckless hybrid rock with blast beats or something, some weird press shit, like.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I also think, and fact is that we've also played in Switzerland the festival after Roadburn. We played this festival in Switzerland called Kilby, which has been going on also for like 30 years, like Roadburn. And they really have like it's a really niche festival, but like, like great capacity, but they would have like, like very avant-garde, even like dance artist next to like a contemporary weird violin player, and then everything that is super hype but that no one really knows about. And somehow we ended up playing there, and it was great because we were the only metal band, so to speak, but yeah, people had the feeling that they were watching like a super heavy rock band as well, because that's the kind of attitude we have in everything we do somehow.
Yeah.
And the way it's being delivered live really tells this story, and there's all these dynamics, which in the end people had the impression of watching like a weird rock show. So I have the feeling like even with Trounce, we were able to inject this kind of like rocky vibe or noise vibe into this extreme thing.
You have a band on your label that I'm a big fan of. So I've reviewed the split EP with Earth Flesh 2 years ago, and then the new album. That band is Roku. My God, they're
Of
like the
course.
most extreme band I've ever heard, but they all look like white collar workers or university professors, short hair, shirt and tie. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, it might be dark, like noise rock type stuff. Then when I put it on, I actually thought, fucking hell, that film Poltergeist in the early
Yeah.
1980s? Like when that girl's being sucked into the television. That's what their music sounds like. It's the
And
harshest music I've ever heard.
dude, it's like specifically their split EP, Witch Coven with
Yeah,
Earthflash,
that's
as you
the one.
said. That's when I received the master, when they're like, oh, we've done this split with Earthflash being the former bass player from Hokal. And I listened to this and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
How? Like it? Where is the music into
How
this?
do humans create music like that? That's what I'm thinking. Like, what mood must you be in to write?
No, they're crazy. That's a crazy good band, and they're like very good friends for such a long time. And I was so happy because they were such a DIY band, always doing everything themselves. And since I started the label, I always wanted to sign them, but they were always like, "Nah, we want to be free and go with many labels." And then we started collaborating when they released Muladona, which is an amazing album. And since then they haven't moved, and I'm super happy. And you don't know how right you are with the descriptions of the guys that you had. Like two of them are actually uni teachers. And yeah, they're very quiet people, and they write this incredibly like harsh music, and it is one of the harshest bands that I listen to. Like it's really intense and really exhausting to listen to their music, actually.
It's like the most unsentimental form of music you could ever listen to. And even the song titles, like one of them something like Childhood with a Knife. I can't remember what the song title was on that latest album.
Childhood is like a knife in the throat or something like that. Yeah.
That actually, I mean, I listened to a wide range of like heavy music, but that just shocked me when I heard it. Because they look like some civilized people, don't they?
They are, but somehow they make this music, and but they put a lot of love into it somehow. Oh, but that's cool that you know them. Yeah, that's a great band. Yeah, and live they're insane as well.
How do you pronounce the name of that band that 2 years ago they did a one song that was 43 minutes, and it's like art school grindcore? Is it Akari?
Yeah,
is that how you pronounce it?
Well, you would say it's like it's like Icarus, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's the French version, so it's Icar.
Icar. Was it called Charon? I think the album was called, wasn't it?
Charon, which is a very famous poem by now I forgot. It was a concept about like the lyrics are inspired by Charon, which is like a poem by Charles Baudelaire, very famous poet. Yeah.
Right. Because I remember reviewing that. I just could not get my head around it. I listened to it 4 times as I was thinking, this is intriguing music. It's one of the few times I just could not understand it. I didn't give up. I just said, go and listen to it and make up your own mind. Come on, progressive grindcore.
But did you like it in the end?
Yeah, I did. But I couldn't articulate why I did or what the music was. And as a music reviewer, we annoy musicians, don't we? Because we have to describe everything and give categories. Yeah. And that one, I just was incapable of doing it.
That's good. I like it. I like the fact that you can't pinpoint the things. That's that makes me feel like that's what we do, maybe.
That's why with Trounce, I just say avant-garde extreme metal. That's if anyone asks me what it is, that's how I describe it. So I've got one more question.
Yep.
Which album are you most proud of as a musician? And I mean, which album that you've appeared on as a studio recording throughout your career? Which album are you most proud of?
Well, I mean, I guess, Trounce is kind of something I take pride in, because it's the first time that I did something so much on my own, like the writing and even the drum the drum beats and stuff. Like I gave the whole direction. Also, I was very involved with like in the mixing process, which I didn't know that I had any, because I don't have any knowledge. I mean, I've done a few records with friends, and so I take really good pride in this one, I would say. And also having been able to gather these people and see what they could bring to this and what Trounce could bring to them, and succeeded in making this performance and making it a live record as well. I guess that's something now that also gave me, not that I needed too much, but like a kind of like a small ego boost, not like in a bad way, but just like, you know, when Roadburn they commission you for something and then you deliver that, then I'm like, okay, I've been making the right choice to make music my life since 15 years, you know, like somehow. It was kind of like an approval by my peers that really now going slowly to my 40s, I was like, shit, that's all right. I made something out of this somehow. So
yeah, it's like the equivalent, you know, where the record industry now is. I suppose this is almost like the equivalent, you know, when you recognize and you get signed to a major label in 1995. That's what probably Roadburn is now, isn't it? Like being asked to being commissioned to write a piece is the ultimate accolade really now, isn't it?
Well, it is in a certain scene, you know. You have to understand that.
Yeah,
exactly. Like Roadburn is, you know, is a very worldwide known festival and respected by a certain scene. Like it's still a festival that has like a human size. It's a human size festival, you know. So, and even if like the music direction is wider now, it's still identified as a festival for like experimental or extreme music, you know.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that it's like signing like on a major label, but for me, like I've been into this scene that's what I've done for the last 15 years. So obviously it's quite a seal of approval for sure. Definitely. And that gave me confidence in the fact that I can also like listen to my own things, and that some people are also cool following my vision, and that creates different interactions with the people you work with, and it's all about the human journey in the end, you know. And like this has created like another example of great things to do in life somehow. Yeah. And I would say also, I know it's gonna sound super cliche, but I would say like for many reasons, like the next Colgan's album is obviously like the ones that I'm the most proud of, because of the human journey that it's been. You know, the two records that you mentioned, Millennials and Watchwinders, they've been, you know, written, recorded, mixed and mastered within the span of 4 weeks. Those two, which is something I would never want to do again. And this one, the next one we're going to release, you know, we took like 3 years, and it's also, we were having expectations with this record, and I think we've pulled it off, at least from what we can do and the people we worked with. And so it's terrible because the record has been ready for a while now, and we still have to wait at least a year before putting it out. So I'm crazy excited about it. So yeah.
I was going to say, when is it out? So we can expect it at some point in 2024, the new Colgan's record then. Is that correct?
Sorry?
Is that correct? We can expect the album to come out next year, 2024?
Yes, fall, but it's not set yet. But
no.
It should be fall. Yeah, like we're building up the setup around it now. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, Jona, Nido, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us on the A.D.K Rock and Metal channel. Our listeners, let me direct you to The Seven Crowns, which was released on the 20th of October via Jona's very prestigious boutique extreme experimental label, Hummus Records. And go out and buy the vinyl or the double CD. Of course, it's on Bandcamp, it's on Deezer, it's on Spotify. And obviously you can go and watch the videos on YouTube. So thank you very much for joining us. If you enjoyed this interview, please like and subscribe to the A.D.K Rock and Metal channel. Take care.